everybody. You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Billy Z.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And that's all you got from the regular hosts. Unfortunately, Brother Brian and Brother Justin couldn't join us tonight. And as you probably know, given the release date of this episode, there is a movie coming out based on the comic book character that we know and love as Diana Prince. Yes, Wonder Woman. The 2017 film is premiering. It's probably out at the time you're listening to this or the night before or something like that. We definitely wanted to time an episode with its release, and we knew that we could not get all four of us seeing the movie in time for a timely episode. You know what I'm talking about. So we decided that we were going to bring on some special guests, and they're actually guests that have appeared on the show before, but we've never really talked in detail about Diana. And the first guest we have returning to the show is Brad Taylor. Brad works for Warner Brothers, and he also has his own Wonder Woman podcast, Wonder Words. The 0 episode is out right now. Please welcome back to the show, Brad Taylor.
Hooray! Hey. Hi, Bears.
Hey. And also, hola. When I was a kid, I didn't pronounce that right. I'll
Bill, I
that
can
later.
listen to your voice all day.
Oh, okay. And also returning to the show, and after way too long an absence, we have James Figueiredo from Bear Nerd, the preeminent Geek Bear Brazilian site. James, how are you
Wow.
doing?
Talk about niche, huh?
Yeah.
That is a bunch of boxes.
That is so hipster.
It originally
guys,
was only for
Bears.
bears named James, right? You know,
No,
you
yes.
had to expand it a bit.
So we're going to talk about Wonder Woman, and if you're
All right.
listening to this show and you don't know who Wonder Woman is, what are you doing? But let's just give
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, a little bit of backstory regarding Diana. Wonder Woman was created by the American psychologist and writer William Moulton Marston and artist Harry G. Peter. Her first appearance was in All-Star Comics number 8, cover dated October 1941, and then her own series started soon after, cover dated January 1942 with the first issue of Sensation Comics. Later on, in I think it was 43, she actually graduated to having her own quarterly title that later became bi-monthly. And as a title, Wonder Woman, it basically has had continuous publication since that time, apart from a very brief hiatus in 1986. We'll talk about that as we get into the story. Wonder Woman's origin story relates that she was sculpted from clay by her mother, Queen Hippolyta, and given life by Aphrodite, along with superhuman powers as gifts from the Greek gods.
From the Geek Gods, yes.
From the Greek gods. However, in recent years, artists have updated her profile. She has been depicted as the daughter of Zeus and jointly raised by her mother Hippolyta and her aunts Antiope and Menelope. Think I got those names right. Artist George Perez gave her a much more muscular look and emphasized her Amazonian heritage. Her Amazonian training helped her develop a wide range of skills in strategy, hunting, and combat. She possesses an arsenal of advanced technology, including the lasso of truth, a pair of indestructible bracelets, a tiara which serves as a projectile, and in some older stories, a range of devices based on Amazon technology. Wonder Woman was created during World War II. The character was initially depicted fighting Axis military forces, as well as an assortment of colorful supervillains, although over time her stories came to place greater emphasis on characters, deities, and monsters from Greek mythology. Now, as you go through the history of the character, there are very distinctive periods. There's the Wonder Woman of the Golden Age, the Wonder Woman of the Silver Age, the Wonder Woman of the Bronze into the Modern. And I think something that we can talk about right now, to kind of get into that a little bit, is when we actually first became familiarized with the character. So, Brad, why don't we start with you? How did you first become aware of Wonder Woman?
You know, when you think about it, I think I was the age of the Super Friends. That was kind of my first exposure. Super Friends, Linda Carter was probably the same time. The first issue I bought was like 284, and it was it had a Perez cover, but it was definitely, you know, pre-Crisis. And that's when I kind of got hooked. Was around the TV show. I was more media before comics.
Okay. Well, let's get the international perspective. James, how about you? How did you first become aware of Wonder Woman?
I was thinking about this prior to this recording. The earliest memory I have of the character is not from the cartoon or from the comics. It's from merchandise. I remember me and my sister at the time, my brother wasn't born yet. It must have been 82 or 1982, 1981. And I remember we had sorts of, like plates and school bags and stuff like that. And I had a lot of Spider-Man stuff, and my sister had a lot of Wonder Woman stuff. So those are the first memories of seeing the character that I have. I must have been about 6 or 7 at the time. And then there was the Super Friends cartoon, which played a lot here. Many reruns, multiple days a week, and I was completely in love with the characters, and that is let me say the first proper Wonder Woman that I remember was the one from Super Friends. And there were reruns of the Linda Carter TV show as well. But the first thing that comes to mind is the merchandise that we had, school stuff and plates and forks and stuff like that, and the cartoon.
Okay. Steve, how about you?
I mean, similar to James, my first exposure to Wonder Woman was more, other forms of media that she appeared in, not comic books. I remember first watching the Wonder Woman TV show with Linda Carter when I was still in the single digits in the 80s. She would come on, obviously, in reruns on TV. Usually, the local independent stations in Philly would run, The Incredible Hulk or Batman, and also the Wonder Woman TV show. So that's where I pretty much first saw her. And Super Friends, of course, once they started running those on some of the other independent stations, I started seeing those older cartoons and getting to see her in a different light rather than just Linda Carter. But for such a long time, until I started reading her in comics, later in the Justice League or anything like that, it was always Linda Carter who popped up. And, her skill set, her power set then with the invisible jet and, spinning to turn into Wonder Woman and her secret identity and all of that stuff was just very much just something that I always associated with the character. And for the longest time, just every time I think about Wonder Woman, I just think of, spinning and the music and the just the ridiculous, the ridiculousness that just like Superman, nobody figured out she was Wonder Woman because she was wearing glasses and had her hair back.
Her hair was up.
Yeah, her hair was up. Totally different person. I don't understand. Which they've actually made fun of a bit on Supergirl in a couple episodes, where Supergirl's Melissa Benoist has her hair up and and glasses on, and clearly it looks exactly the same, but her hair's up. So, I think when I really got interested in her in comics, I did not really hit on the George Perez years like I know that some people have. My first real consistent reading of her was when New 52 relaunched her title.
Oh, that late. Okay.
Oh,
wow.
Because I have.
That's a long gap.
That's a
I
big
have
gap.
read some of the George Perez 80s and some of the 90s books, but mostly when I saw her, it was in teen books. And I think I picked up her crossover annual from the whole Eclipso thing in the early 90s. I think that was probably the only comic.
Yes.
When they gave away the little Eclipso diamonds.
Oh God, yeah,
those were.
I thought those were the coolest things, even though they were the cheapest, shittiest plastic things. But yeah, no, I really didn't start buying on a monthly basis and reading her on a monthly basis until New 52. So.
Can I just intervene? Steve talked about the TV show that ran with the Hulk TV show and the Batman one, and something like that happened here because I remember watching those kinds of shows as well as the Nick Hammond Spider-Man, that awful live-action Spider-Man.
So bad. That was so terrible.
So bad. And I loved it as a child.
They were both filmed at the exact same time, so.
And all of these showed up here kind of like back to back, and those memories are very, very vivid in my mind of these characters, the whole Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk, and Nick Hammond as Spider-Man, Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, and the Batman series, the 60s Batman. And Steve talked about the comics, and I remember that in the comics, my memories are more of Wonder Girl, because at the time the George Perez and Mark Wolfman's Teen Titans was
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Yay.
so I had this picture of Wonder Woman from the cartoon and from the TV show, the live action TV show, and of Wonder Girl in the comics, but not much of Wonder Woman herself in the comics at the time.
Well, as the old guy here, and
Oh.
I do have to say, I think everybody here has mentioned Super Friends. And for me, that actually was the first exposure I had to Wonder Woman. It's boring at this point, but I've said it so many times. September 8th, 1973, at the beginning of the 9 o'clock hour, I was one little 6-year-old, and at the end, I was a different 6-year-old. That show
Oh.
changed my life.
Where did
And-
it touch you?
On that night, you became a man.
But I had exposure to Superman before. I'm not exactly sure what. I think I had a Superman frisbee or something. I knew who Superman was. Batman and
How British.
Aquaman, I had a lot more familiarity because at the time in the New York market they were airing the Filmation cartoon
The Filmation
of,
cartoon,
of
yeah.
Batman and Aquaman, but interestingly not Superman or Superboy. It took me years to see the George Reeves Superman because they just weren't in circulation. But
Wow.
I was about 9 or 10 or so when I finally started seeing the George Reeves Superman. But Batman, we had almost a continuous run through my childhood of the Batman '66 show. So Wonder Woman was something new for me too. I mean, she was just as new as Wendy Marvin and Wonder Dog. And
Oh.
I can say that my
Oh,
first comic of Wonder Woman was
Poor Wonder Dog.
was someday they're gonna have that reboot and just treat those three correctly.
Oh, someday.
So my first Wonder Woman comic, since you actually gave one, an ID, Brad, I'm going to do the same. And mine was Wonder Woman number 210, which was toward the end of Robert Kanigher's second run, I think. On the character. Yeah. And the story sucked until it gets going pretty quickly though later in 1974. But that was my first Wonder Woman comic, and with fits and starts, there's times that I've been out of comics and times that I've been back in. But usually when I've been in, I've had some hook onto what Wonder Woman was doing, whether it was through the teen books or through her own book.
Was 210 the one where she's like being grabbed by like the pinchers?
Like the
tiny?
tweezers. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Oh god.
That was my first Wonder Woman comic, and I think around the same time there was also an issue of Lois Lane where Superman and Wonder Woman start getting chummy, but it's actually a mission, and they're like playing tennis together, and Lois is getting all mad.
Like you do. You do.
Oh,
Yeah.
And it's also important to note that at that time, Wonder Woman was not part of the Justice League. When she had become depowered, and we'll
Right.
talk about that,
Yeah.
she later went through a series of trials.
Yes.
To get back into the league. But let's go way back to the Golden Age history of the character. How many of you guys have read the actual Golden Age stories? Because I've read a ton of them.
Yeah.
Brad, why don't you talk? Because there's some, I don't want to say peculiar elements, but there's some distinctive elements
Peculiar.
to that particular time period.
Well, yeah, all that stuff in the Golden Age it bounced all over the place from you have the egg foo villains to the straight up, bondage characters. But I love the 40s, Wonder Woman for President, things like that.
Uh-huh.
I love that her costume kept changing like every other issue. Sometimes she has sandals, sometimes she doesn't. But the bondage really played. I remember that when I read some of the old ones, like Sensation number 4, where she's breaking the chains, and of course I didn't understand the feminism back then, but now that I look back on it, it was definitely, she's fighting, Mars with his, hyper masculinity. So I get a kick out of them. Today, they're even, if you go back and read them, they're even more apt today, I think. And that's the thing with the character is, unlike Superman or Batman, Wonder Woman changes so much because if you think about it, women have changed so much since, the 40s and, given their rights and certain, women's movements. And I think Wonder Woman reflects that, whereas, Superman, Batman, their origins have stayed pretty steady, whereas Diana's kind of bounces around.
Yeah.
I am actually. I just got the Golden Age Wonder Woman omnibus
Yay!
a couple
Cool.
of weeks ago. Yes, I think it was last month. I read some of those stories many years ago, and I'm rereading them now. And what sticks out, what calls to my attention here is how crazy it is that he was writing and publishing those stories in the 40s.
Right.
You know? Because it is really out there, and some of the bondage and sexual stuff is not even that
Subtle.
subtle. Yes,
it's not like it's in one or two stories. It's like in everything.
Everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's in your face, you know, and the way it's really interesting the way that Diana's go-to method for reforming her villains or for solving her problems is going to bondage, you know.
Yep.
And
Lots of spanking.
Yes, lots of spanking and bondage and submission, and let's show how good it is to submit to an okay. And that was the 40s, the 1940s, and it is really
Sounds like
impressive.
my
I
last
think that
Friday.
he was girl. So that really stands out for me because I can't think of many things today being published that have that kind of appeal, you know, that kind of I don't know sensibility. Let's call it that.
I mean, I think we are a period where there are books like Sex Criminals or some of Midnight or books that are highly sexually charged, but not necessarily in this terrain.
Right.
Well, as the character moves on, and I'm really glad you brought that up, Brad, as women change, Wonder Woman seems to change. We get into the 1950s, and she becomes much more, I don't want to say a sidekick, but, you know, pining over
sidekick,
Steve
yes.
Trevor, and that kind of dominates the stories. I've recently read a couple of 50s stories because those are the least readily available.
It's true.
From her history right now. And there is an element to that, but you still see some echoes of the power that the character had in the 1940s. You move on into the Silver Age, and until we hit 67, 68, it's a very conventional comic book. And they also did something that was very interesting, though, in that they started presenting stories of Diana at different periods of her life. So you had
sometimes all together.
The same. You know, so
that was a mess.
Yeah. So you had a Wonder Baby and a Wonder Girl and a Wonder Woman.
Wonder Tot.
Yeah, Wonder Tot. Sorry.
Let's talk about how those were weren't even Diana, but you know, projections of Hippolyta's memories. That was so convoluted.
Yeah.
So unnecessarily complicated.
Gee, and I missed that. Aww.
Yeah, you missed that, but something you also.
On the other hand, you got to read the Brian Azzarello Conan dressed as Wonder Woman, which I don't know if it's a better trade-off.
But Steve, something you also missed is when you do get to the Silver Age, some of the villains she fights are just batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Angleman and Brad had mentioned Egg Foo. I mean, there's some really strange.
Minister Blizzard.
Yeah.
And that's a problem that the character has, is that she doesn't really have a big stable of villains.
Right.
Like Batman, Superman, or even the Flash. A lot of her villains just because they are so ridiculous, they get tossed aside, reinvented here and there. Yeah. But for the most part, unless it's Cheetah or Cersei or Ares, they're kind of forgotten.
Right. Or there's also some villains that you don't even associate with the character at this point, like Giganta.
Exactly. It's so far removed.
But I don't know. Are they really more ridiculous than, say, Mr. and Mrs. Pitlick or the Penguin? I don't think so.
Well, you know, I think it all depends on who's handling it. You know?
Exactly.
Like for me, the late 70s version of Angleman works.
Right.
That definitely works. What's going on in the 60s is, you know, it's almost like a mustache twirling villain from Man from U.N.C.L.E. or something. But I mentioned spies, so let's go into the late 60s.
Oh, yay.
And this is something that I have to say I think is maligned. I think the maligning is justified, and I also think it isn't. The sales were so low for the character, they had to do a seismic shakeup. and Denny O'Neil was the writer, Mike Sikowski was the artist.
Yes.
And they shook Wonder Woman up. You sound like you're chomping at the bit to talk about this, Brad, so why don't you cover Diana Prince Wonder Woman?
I mean, when I was little, once again, coming from Super Friends, when I finally read, the forget the old, the new Wonder Woman is here, I was thoroughly confused. But, number 178's where seismic change, like you said, the character just, loses her powers. One of many times she'll do that. She gets, the Asian mentor I Ching, and, kind of Steve Trevor's dead. And so it is a really great run. I can see how some people, malign it now, but I mean, the fashion alone is, to me, I guess, we hinted at the gay aesthetic. I think that she has the sassy boots, and she's the Diana Rigg of the Avengers throughout, the next few years. I thought they were great, and I think it's what the book needed, so you could remember, that's what, I missed the red, white, and blue, but it was, the 60s, it was turbulent, and maybe that was the most logical way the character could go. But of course, that did lead us to the Kathy Lee Crosby Wonder Woman movie of 1974, but which is good in its own way.
Yeah.
But I think everyone should pick up that trade and read it, because it's some solid stories,
right,
and some great covers.
Right, and also you have some additions to the supporting cast in the form of her mentor I Ching, which is if it was today, we wouldn't be naming him I Ching, but
no, we wouldn't.
It's definitely shaken up, and you also have to look at things that were happening then on TV. We had Diana Rigg as Emmett Peel, we had Barbara Feldon as Agent 99 on Get Smart. There were a Barbara Bain and Possible. There were a number of strong female characters on television and in the films, extending to the Bond films and
Bond, huge Bond,
Right.
A lot of Bond influences.
Brad, may I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
I was reading a couple of years ago the trades, because DC published all of this run in 4 trade paperbacks. I kind of got the impression that was DC trying to do Modesty Blaze in the DC universe.
Definitely. That was a huge influence on the writers. And you can definitely, when you're little, though, you don't really get the inferences, but I think that's definitely a thing. Modesty Blaze, I read those about 10 years ago, and I thought the same thing. Like, I can see where they were taking a lot of their inspiration.
Yes, kind of like Modesty Blaze Light,
exactly.
For kids.
But I also like that it gave us, Diana and, Bella Bottoms, and she kind of dressed like Catwoman a little bit sometimes. And she's throwing Lois Lane around a bit, so that was good times.
Right. And also, if you do go to those stories, some of the best Paradise Island stories are during the period.
Very dark.
Really dark stuff. Yeah. But that couldn't last forever, and on the first issue of Ms. Magazine, Gloria Steinem approached DC Comics to have Wonder Woman on the cover, but she didn't want Go-Go Boot Diana. She wanted the classic Wonder Woman. And that set off a chain of events, including licensing, including Super Friends, and including how she was depicted in her own comic, where she returned to superheroics. We had mentioned her trials to get back into the Justice League. And just as that was hitting, we also had her appearances in live-action television, which Brad will cover in a little bit. Following that, for a period in the late 70s, the comic shifted to the Earth 2 Wonder Woman. We don't have to get into that about Earth 1 and 2, but Wonder Woman was back in the Golden Age fighting Nazis and some of her classic villains. As the CBS show went to modern times, there was a pretty big lag between the comics and the...
There was.
Yeah. She eventually updates to the modern day, and the beginning of the 80s is pretty confused, I think, for the character. There's
and the reader.
Yes. I don't want to say reboot, but throughout the early 80s, there was a backup of the Huntress in Wonder Woman for years, And
Yes.
Which is amazing.
And
Yes.
the Huntress, if you weigh the two characters together, there was so much more interesting stuff going on in the Huntress, and Wonder Woman was just kind of on autopilot.
Yep.
Again, we hit the mid '80s. We hit Burns' Man of Steel. We hit The Dark Knight Returns, and
But before
lo
that,
and behold,
there's the Gene Colan drawn.
yeah. But, I mean, with the Gene Colan,
That is so.
it's nice, but it's so short-lived.
Yeah.
And that was
Just
with
a
Roy
little over a
Thomas
year.
writing. Yeah, I just never thought he was the right artist for the character.
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just thought there
Maybe
were.
not, but he was so good.
I mean, it was so good.
I
But,
think
you know,
maybe
maybe
the
if
inker was not right.
maybe the inker
The
wasn't right, but also the tone of the stories. didn't
I mean,
really
the
lend
story. Yeah, you're right.
itself
I
to
think
the-
I think today it would work. Like with with all the things you can do in comics today, I think a Gene Colan Wonder Woman arc would be amazing.
he wouldn't need an inker for starters because they could shoot directly from his. Yes, because he usually said that he liked his stuff as inked by Tom Palmer because it looked closer to what the pencils looked like. It was not very defined, not very sharp,
Mhm.
And when he was doing Wonder Woman, his inker was Romeo Thangal, and that was very traditional inking that didn't match very well with the pencils. And today, I think it would be all pencils, and it would be amazing to look at. If you see his art, just the pencils, it's so beautiful.
But yeah, the Huntress issues is when I first started reading it, so I was super confused at the time. I'm like, who the hell is the Huntress?
And why
Isn't that Batgirl?
If it's Batman's daughter, but you never see Batman, yeah, I can totally understand that.
I'm like 5. I'm like, I don't know, but I still love it.
But as I mentioned, we get to 85, 86, this amazing period for comic books, particularly DC Comics. And post-crisis, if you don't know what that means, look it up. We have
Oh,
Jordan
boy.
Perez holding the reins of the character and taking her into the 90s. An amazing run, and then a series of very solid writers. We had Messer Loebs was
Messer
on
Loebs.
for,
Oh yeah.
for a long period. We had John Byrne, which I think is one of the most underrated runs.
Oh boy.
I think it's an uneven run. That's
It's
the
an
problem.
uneven
Oh,
run,
boy.
but the stuff that I like a lot, and maybe we can talk about that. You had J. Michael Straczynski was in charge of the
Oh,
character.
no, that's not.
Yeah, that's not.
Looked good on paper. But
It-
yeah.
Well,
No, it doesn't.
not with that outfit.
No, Bill. I'm sorry, Bill. I've got to stop you with this whole John Byrne thing. I mean,
Really?
she can't even bend over without cutting her abdomen with that giant belt.
Okay.
And Sierra-
We'll talk about
Sierra
that.
is so large, I don't even know how she could keep her head up.
Well,
That whole run, and it gave us Cassie. Oh no.
okay.
Oh,
Well,
boy.
we'll talk
No,
about
I
we'll talk
love
about
Cass.
it.
No.
Yeah, it sounds like
Nothing
there's fighting
wrong
words
with
there.
Cassie.
No, there's
Watered
not.
down Donna.
We also had Gail Simone. We also had.
She tried.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It
Yes,
looked
she
like it was. She tried to throw too much into the stew. I felt.
She did.
Yeah.
That was so promising.
Yeah.
When she was announced as the writer, that had.
I was very excited. Yeah.
We had Greg Rucka's amazing first run, which really covered her as an ambassador of Themyscira and threw in a bunch of political elements. And I think even if you don't care for Rucka's writing, I don't think you can doubt his affection for the character.
No, not at all.
I think his rebirth run was 100% better than.
Yes, it is. But
Yeah, I will agree. I wouldn't say
the stuff
100%
that
better.
didn't
but-
work in his first run works wonderfully now.
And then with the advent of the New 52, we had Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chang's run.
Oh boy!
And
That
this
gave
is
me rickets.
oh my god, okay. Oh boy.
Wait,
I love
rickets? You got rickets from that because you were
costume.
inside
Oh.
someone?
I loved it. But we can talk about that. And then we had the Finches, which in my head never happened.
Oh.
And
The
currently
Finches had the let's say the advantage of making the Straczynski run not so awful.
The Finch run is like a horrible Twinkie ad. I just like.
Oh
okay.
yes.
It's just a series of Twinkie ads I can forget, not in continuity.
Oh my god.
And just when you think the Mike Deodato outfit couldn't be topped as the worst outfit in the Wonder Woman.
V is for vagina. Yeah.
Let's give her a
boy.
biker
Oh,
jacket,
boy.
straight bangs.
And right now in the DC Rebirth era, we're coming to the end of Greg Rucka's run,
Sad.
which had amazing art from Liam Sharp and from Nicholas Scott. I forget the person with the long name who is also on art when those two are.
Evelyn.
Yeah, that's it.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's basically your history of comics. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little later about what our favorite runs of Wonder Woman, what our favorite stories are that we would recommend for you to read if you haven't read them. But we're going to shift back to the media end because, again, they influence each other. So, Brad, why don't you cover how Wonder Woman has been depicted in media, particularly, naturally, television and film, outside of the comic books? Tell us about that.
Sure. I mean, bless DC. They sure tried to get her off the ground many times. Her first real appearance was on the Brady Kids, and you know you're off to a good start then. She appeared in an episode called It's All Greek to Me, and she took the Brady Kids to Paradise Island, and then they traveled back in time. So it was a good episode. It was kind of the precursor to the Super Friends.
Have you ever read about that? That they basically were backdoor pilots, and they commissioned one from Hanna-Barbera and one from Filmation, with Superman also making an appearance in the Brady Kids.
He did, yes.
And
he helped paint a bank or something.
Yeah. And the
you
Filmation
can't make this
ones
stuff up, guys.
Yeah, the Filmation ones I thought were better because the Scooby-Doo episodes with Batman and Robin are they're tough to sit through.
They're rough.
They're really rough. But we had Super Friends out of it, so
yes, all those things gelled together to create the Super Friends. And they tried to. Years later, you find out they tried to pilot for a 66 version, 67 version of Wonder Woman from the same people that did Batman. And, of course, you guys can find that on YouTube. It's only like 5-10 minutes. And it's horrible.
It's adorably horrible. Come on.
It's adorably horrible,
It's so fun.
And it's great in the fact that I can't even figure out where they would have gone with this. She's living in an apartment with her mom. Her Hippolyta is like an overbearing mother, and she wants to go see Steve. There's like a rainstorm, and she has to fly out the window, and she twinkles her feet, and she kind of flies away. But when she changes into Wonder Woman, her vision of Wonder Woman is somebody else in the mirror. It's so bizarre that you guys have to watch it. And her biggest nemesis is the newspaper. She can't figure out how to read it. She falls over in the chair. This is real. But it's cute. It is very cute. At least they got the costume right. I give them points for that.
Yes, they did.
And Stanley Ralph Ross, he was the man behind that. He worked on the Batman show. He kept that in his back pocket. And then DC, of course, went the Kathy Lee Crosby route because someone was still reading the 60s comics. And thought, let's have her be blonde and depowered, but everyone's going to know her, and Ricardo Montalban will be the villain. So she got a 2-hour movie that did okay, but thank the gods they went back to the drawing board the next year, and they went back to Stanley Ralph Ross, who said, well, can I have a shot again? I'm like, sure. And then they find Linda Carter, and then the rest is, of course, history. But I think it was just perfect timing on the fact that Super Friends and Wonder Woman, the TV series, kind of hit at the same time. That I think without that, I don't think we might have the character today. I think that really saved her because we talk about the 60s, and the lack of identity of the character. I think her media appearances kept her in the minds of people, kind of like Superman with George Reeves and all those media appearances. So. And if you kids haven't seen the Kathy Lee Crosby version, it's available on Warner Archives DVD. And the Who's Afraid of Diana Prince mini pilot is available on YouTube in the grainy formula, but it's still there. But yeah, she 3 successful seasons of Wonder Woman, I might add, of the TV show. And of course, it moved around time periods, but that's a whole other subject, whole other podcast.
Yeah, many episodes, we hope.
Yeah, so, who's your favorite Beatle? What's your favorite season of Wonder Woman? It all starts fights.
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about the 2000s pilot, the Dally McBeal guy that did
The Adrian Pilecki pilot?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be there when they were filming said pilot, and that costume sits in a closet in my office.
Oh
Oh,
boy. Really?
It does. It does.
Ooh,
It's a new
that's
picture.
cool.
You
It
pull
is-
it out and you try to put it on every so
I
often.
look at it. When I think things can't get any worse, I look at that costume and I go, they can. But before that, DC had worked on another pilot for Wonder Woman, Lois and Clark era. Lois and Clark, of course, huge hit. The same Deborah Joy Levine wrote a pilot for Wonder Woman, and they had a huge. You guys remember the Warner Brothers studio stores that used to be everywhere?
yep.
Yeah.
They had
No.
They had an open casting call for that. So they were going to cast an unknown actress from this, Warner store casting call, and I got my hands on the script, and it is awful.
Yeah.
The first thing we see her at a bar, Wonder Woman's at a bar, and this guy's hitting on her, and she uses a lasso to make him tell the truth. Like wraps it around his leg. He's like, "Yeah, I'm married." Oh, okay. She lives on a beach, and she has an owl named Hestia.
Mm.
She gets her costume via FedEx from Paradise Island.
So she's basically Jessica Jones as Wonder Woman.
Yes, it is very. Yeah, I never thought about that. It is very
Okay.
Jessica Jones,
Okay.
and it mirrors the Lois and Clark pilot, where she even has to stop a space shuttle launch. So it's kind of. The only thing I liked is they made her a professor of Greek studies at UCLA.
Oh, that's
I
kind
thought
of
that
cool.
was cute.
Yeah, that works.
Cute twist.
Yeah. Do you know the connection between that thankfully abandoned TV initiative and the comic books?
Tell me.
Nicola Scott was one of the women who auditioned. Artist
Oh,
Nicola
really?
Scott.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
What?
She's
No way.
gorgeous. She would have been great.
Yep. Yep. She dyed her red hair, as she put it. When she was in her early 20s, she had a smoking body.
But
I think she
I was
still
going to
does.
ask that. How
Yep.
old is she? Because she looks really young now.
She looks.
She's about, I think, like 44 or so.
Wow.
Yeah, so she actually auditioned, sent a tape in from Australia, and actually had meetings for.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can see that now.
Yeah. There also was a Wonder Woman. I think it got to like base animation. Is anybody aware of Wonder Woman and the Star?
And the Star Riders.
Yes,
Riders?
yeah.
Yes.
We actually talked
Yes.
about
We
that.
talked about this on.
previous
I
episode.
think when Chris was on, this was
Yeah.
a planned Mattel
It
toy
was.
line, which basically would have been repaints of She-Ra.
Yes.
One promotional comic was released with
It was.
with Cinnabons, with Hostess, whatever the
Like you
sorry,
do, yeah.
Cinnamon mini buns. And what was interesting about this is they actually brought real DC comic characters over in the forms of Ice and Dolphin, would have been two of her teammates in the Star Riders, with original creations Star Lily and Solara.
It's also upsetting when you say it like
Yeah.
that.
It's I'll tell you, it's like we would have had a dedicated Wonder Woman toy line in 1993, and in the days before the internet, I looked for these for months.
Really?
I looked for these because they were officially announced in Mattel catalogs
They
and
were.
toy trades,
They were.
and they just never materialized. I think there was some animation that was prepared, either for a commercial or something.
I think Andy Mangold still has some original concept drawings from the cartoon.
Yeah.
And some, yeah. That would have been weird.
It would have been weird, but we would have had more, and
She had like a tutu and stuff. It was just upsetting.
This obviously never made it here, but I've been aware of this particular try
yeah.
by way of José Luis Garcia Lopez's Modern Masters book. Because he did a lot of concept drawings for that. And they are beautiful.
They only made it as far as Bill's house.
Yeah.
He has the prototype dolls.
Oh.
in like this cabinet, this glass cabinet that he passes by every.
It's like a vanity from Yvonne Craig. He pushes a button, it flips around.
But he keeps it covered with a velvet cape.
Oh boy.
Oh, that needs to
So
happen.
they can't be exposed to light.
Right. And then on top of things, Wonder Woman's maintained appearances in the DC animated world as a member of the Justice League and then Justice League Unlimited and some of the other incarnations.
So good.
And she made an appearance on the post-crisis Superman cartoon.
Oh, that's right. That was the only guest
It was
appearance.
very Peresian.
Yeah.
A very Peresian version.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a really good episode.
Yep.
It was kind of her first post Super Friends appearance.
Right.
Though it was very, and that's on DVD too. So all you could just check it out.
And that leads us to the current day with her appearance in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice and now her own film. But we'll be talking about that in future episodes.
Oh, there was also the the movie that came out, the straight to video movie, animated film 2000, was it 2006, 2007?
2000.
The anniversary edition just
came
out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know it got re-released. I've actually had seen it before.
And that was co-written by Gail Simone. If people didn't know.
Okay, that's good. It was a pretty good story.
Nathan Fillion made a good Steve Trevor.
He did make a little more of a male chauvinist than I was expecting.
He's kind of a dick.
Yeah, he's a bit of a dick, but so are the Amazons too.
They were kind of bitchy.
Kind of bitchy in there. I thought that was a very good encapsulation of the character, of the various elements of the mythology and her purpose in man's world, and it really was a pretty good distillation of at least where the character was at that time.
Who was Kerry Russell the voice of Wonder Woman?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I really didn't like the beginning, the whole beginning of the movie with the Amazons and mentioning that Wonder Woman had a brother. It was just really weird. But the last scene with Cheetah was amazing, and I thought that would have led to really cool animated series.
Okay, well, something I want to bring up is the connection of Wonder Woman to queer culture. And Steve, I'll let you lead this part. Why don't you talk about that?
Well, I mean, part of it really stems from her initial creation. I mean, Moulton Marston really kind of created a character who would personify what it was, or what his vision of a strong woman, a strong female role model should be.
Right.
But a lot of that stems actually from his home life and his own relationship with his wife and their live-in girlfriend, I guess secondary wife, Olive. And I did have her name.
Olive Byrne, right?
Yes, Olive Byrne, and basically she was in a relationship with both of them. So, in his own life, he was very familiar with, I would say, a very queer relationship and also queer women that he was part of. So he was, in a polyamorous relationship. His wife, of course, was also in love with Olive. It's very interesting that this character would have started out, and obviously this wasn't very public at the time. I'm sure, people close to him knew, and probably some people in his industry, I believe he's a psychologist as well, but probably would have known about this. But, for the general public, here was like a new comic book character where, superhero comic books were still relatively new, that was a very strong female figure that came from an entire island made up of entirely of women. She was raised by three, very strong women on the island who were all considered her mother, more or less. This was a woman who, if you thought about it for more than a few seconds, would have been raised by an entire culture of lesbians.
It takes a village.
It takes a village. And,
it takes an island.
This is an entire island. This is a character who, by all accounts, if it really came down to it, would have been surrounded by, queer women her entire life. As if you look at the history of the character in the pages, obviously you couldn't really have something like that very obvious. Now, bondage and spanking and BDSM aside, in the early Golden Age stories, she did not exhibit any kind of, sexual attraction to women. Obviously, she was given Steve Trevor as, even though he was almost a sidekick at that point as well, he was still the love interest. So there wasn't really any overt messages that Wonder Woman was bi or lesbian, but that she had this male companion who was also sometimes love interest. And of course, that culminated years later when they eventually did get married before Crisis, I think it was.
Yes, the universe is ending. Let's get married.
Yeah, sure. This will totally prove that I'm totally into boys. It's basically
how are you at weddings in Miss Color?
Yeah.
Man, here we go.
What do you wear when the sky's red all the time?
All the time.
It's like my white dress looks pink. I don't know what that says, but obviously in more recent years, the blaringly obvious to any queer readers has been brought more to the forefront. So Greg Rucka very openly talked about the fact that she was bi. The Azzarello run, and of course, very, very recently in the new latest Rucka run, it's very clear.
Right.
Make it very abundantly clear that she has had relationships with women on Themyscira prior to being brought to man's world.
Right. And it's also prominent in Morrison's Year One.
Year One.
Yeah.
Of course, one has some other visual cues of a very sexualized nature, but it is very telling to me, though, that Wonder Woman is probably less of a well-known lesbian icon, although she very well is, but she's also a very strong gay male icon. And a lot of it, of course, is the fact that she is glamorous, and a lot of it, I would say, probably the biggest germ that kind of gave rise to that feeling was, of course, Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. I mean, here it was beautiful. She was glamorous, but she was also very strong. She had the secret self that she would just bring out in a very fabulous way, and still hold her own. So she was able to use her sexuality, but also, be strong and powerful. And I think a lot of young queer boys really identified with that. I mean, here was a character who had strength, but was a woman, wasn't a overtly super manly man, and she also got the guy. That was here was a character that could embody sort of masculine traits in a way, in the way that it would have been understood in the 70s and 80s for young boys growing up and in that type of gendered culture. But also you have, this is a character who also can fall in love with men. And if you're a young boy watching Wonder Woman, you've got the superhero element, so that kind of appeals a little bit, especially if you're already a fan of superheroes. But it's also a superhero that can fall in love with a man, can actually have relationships with men. Whereas Batman and Robin, that's one thing. Superman has Lois, okay, but here's...
I mean, I really think that the TV, Linda did a great job. If anything, her kindness transcended the show, and every person she meets, she deals with, she tries to reform them. She tries, she helps little kids, like in the, season 1 and season 3, she's like skateboarding and stuff, and you can kind of identify, with that. And of course, the transformative aspect of spinning around and being someone completely different is, at least for me, I loved it when Viola Davis was talking about the character when she was doing Suicide Squad promotion. When she was being harassed for being black in her neighborhood, she just wished she could spin around and become Wonder Woman and take care of the bullies and stuff. And I think, as a little gay kid, that really speaks to you. And, I can be something else. I can go from, I can transform myself into the ultimate version of myself.
Yeah.
Which, to me, that's still what speaks to me from the character is, and of course, yes, fabulous outfits. running on a beach, and who doesn't want to run on Malibu Beach in a negligee and, no sandals and find Lyle Wagner? Who doesn't want that?
Sorry, Lyle Wagner.
Oh, I did.
Oh.
His furry chest. Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, yes.
And, and I think you hit it with a lot of those points, and it's kind of like the Julie Newmar Catwoman and the over the top of hypersexualized, but not doing anything with it necessarily. It was kind of harmless, and your dad would let you watch it on TV, and you wouldn't get in trouble because you thought you were watching for the women. So that was fun.
Hey, my dad watched it for the women.
You wouldn't get in trouble for watching it.
Well, see, and I think that actually is very interesting that you would mention that, because that's one of those situations where a straight man and a gay man or boy could both watch the same show and appreciate it for different reasons.
Different levels, yes.
But again, because of how she was portrayed. I mean, she's portrayed very sexually, but with the restraint of somebody that also garners respect, not using their sexuality for means in the way that, say, a 1960s sex pot would portray Catwoman. I mean, between Julie Newmar, but also Eartha Kitt. I mean, they're using their sexuality very, very overtly, whereas Wonder Woman just happens to be sexy, and she's very attractive, obviously, to people on screen and with the audience. But she also uses her own abilities to get things done, not just sort of like, oh, come here, big boy, I'll trick you into,
Right. and that's
sorry.
That's really a testament to Linda and her performance, is that people felt comfortable. She didn't, she's walking around in a bathing suit essentially, and it's like clothes, and that's part of her charm of the character that I think no one's been able to capture. That's the hard part. Like Christopher Reeve, like in that suit, he is Superman, and that's what I think is lacking in certain current super people. It doesn't seem natural. But Henry Cavill's furry, so that makes up for that.
I could totally hear your eyes rolling with some of this stuff. But of course, Henry Cavill. That's me making drooling noises.
And I think Gal Gadot, though, from what we talked about Batman vs Superman and everything I've seen from her, she also seems natural. Like it's part of who she is. She's bringing herself to the part, and I think that's what Linda did, and I think that's what a lot of actresses don't do. They like, I'm in this suit, I'm going to play it up because I have a bathing suit on. But that's what makes me happy that this is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, watch the Adrian Palicki version. She's so boring.
I'd rather not. Isn't she like she's like a blogger? I don't know. I can't. I've read so many different weird synopses about that.
Oh boy.
But the interesting thing here is, talking about how Gal Gadot and Linda Carter portray Wonder Woman, there really aren't that many other examples of how she's portrayed. You see so many.
I've been listening to you talk about the comparing Linda Carter's Wonder Woman to Julie Newmar's Catwoman. But I think Yvonne Craig's Batgirl is a better match because she's also sexy, but she's completely not playing up the sexy. Yeah. She's just naturally sexy, and she's feisty, and she's smart, and she goes out there and punches guys and kicks guys. For some reason she didn't punch anyone, but she kicked a lot. And
I'm really glad you brought that up, because when you do think of the Yvonne Craig Batgirl, there's a very important element there, is that she's independent.
Yes,
she isn't necessarily a sidekick. She's there to help out, but she's not a junior
kind
partner.
Of competing with Batman and Robin.
Yes.
Yeah, in the beginning she's definitely like, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm competing with you, and I have my laser compact.
Yeah.
So,
And as soon as you start lecturing me, I'm gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a very good point there. Emma Peel also comes to mind from the Avengers. I mean, there is that. You can only be less sexy then, well, not much when you're wearing a leather bodysuit all the time.
All the time. It's
All
the
the
clothes.
time.
It's
Like,
just
it's gotta be
clothes,
so
yeah.
hot. She probably just can't get out of it. So she's like, it's just sweaty and gross in there.
I'm just gonna sleep in it. Okay.
I'm just kidding. This is me now. This is my outside. But yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that when you look at her from a queer perspective, a lot of people still refer back to the Linda Carter version of Wonder Woman.
Oh, sure.
I mean, yes, you've got the comics now that are very, very overt storytelling, but in terms of the greater awareness of Wonder Woman, the comics are actually still, I mean, they're a small part right now. People
Right.
recognize Wonder Woman from other
And
forms of media.
Arguably, the gays have kept the character alive. I mean,
Exactly. I mean,
gays,
how many
number one, we're
weeks come out?
completists. We need everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We God forbid we skip a run of something, even if it's horrible.
Yeah.
So
The features
You
made me
know-
do that. It's the first time in, I don't know, 20 years that I didn't buy a Wonder Woman comic. It was the Finches. I bought the first arc and I decided, no, this is too much. This is too awful. And yes, they actually broke me in that way.
yeah, they had me until Donna Troy.
Oh my
I'm
God!
like, I'm leaving.
Oh, boy, don't get me
yeah.
started
Thank
on
God
that.
that.
I'm leaving.
Thank God that
it was made of
that was
like
washed away very
clay.
quickly. Thank God.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Well, you know,
I don't
you
think they knew where
mentioned
it was
Donna
going.
Troy. Why don't we talk about some of her supporting players? Because I heard somebody mention Cassie, and then I heard her grumble, and then I heard her get
Yes,
angry.
yes,
So,
yes.
James, why don't we take the
Die,
lead on this?
Cassie,
Who are some of your
die.
favorite supporting characters for Wonder Woman?
Okay, I really love the George Perez era cast because he actually when you read the older Wonder Woman stories, you have Hippolyta. Sometimes you have some other Amazon. There's that Amazon that becomes Wonder Woman for 2 issues and then dies, which I think is very
Spoiler
close.
alert.
Oh, come on, it's from the 70s.
Orana. Yeah,
Yes,
Orana.
Orana,
Yeah.
yes. There's Nubia at a couple of issues as well, and that's it. In the 40s, there's Etta, and there's always Steve. But Paris, he actually developed a really interesting cast,
A
as
great
much
cast,
in the island
yes.
as outside of the island. You know, because Wonder Woman had Julia Capatellis and Vanessa Capatellis and Mindy Meyer. And,
Vanessa, who should have been Wonder Girl, yes.
Oh, don't get me started on that. That's the one thing I think Phil Jimenez did that I didn't get, that I didn't support, because I'm really supportive of his run on Wonder Woman. But I think what he did to Vanessa was ill-conceived, I think. But I think Perez did a great job with the supporting cast. He didn't do it with Diana herself, but he made it very clear that in the island, the Amazons had romantic relationships among each other. There was Menalippe was the oracle in the island, and she had a lover that was stated in the comic. It was shown her sleeping in the same bed with her lover, and that was really mind blowing to me as a kid, as a teenager reading that. And I really like John Byrne's supporting cast. I'm sorry,
Me
Brad.
too.
It's the same cast. with
Yes,
different
yes,
names.
but yes, it is. But Cassie, when she was
Cassie's
being
just
handled
Vanessa.
by Byrne. Yes, but when Cassie was being handled by Byrne, she was this tomboy, and I thought it was so nice to see.
She wore a wig and goggles.
Yes, but she was
I
tomboyish.
can't
She
get
was.
behind that.
She wasn't that the typical girl that Vanessa was. And I think that after Byrne left, they started sexing up Cassie more and more and more. And I think that
The midriff shirts.
yes, there was
Like in
potential,
Britney.
there, But I think in terms of supporting cast, probably Paris and Rucka did the best jobs.
Uh-huh.
The way that Greg Rucka handled the embassy cast was awesome. I think it was one of the best things he did was give her a staff for the embassy and develop the staff. Yes, of course. Then
A Minotaur chef, yeah.
Ferdinand, yeah.
Of
But that's
course,
the problem.
Infinite
But
Crisis
that's-
had to come and fuck it
Yeah.
up.
But that's the innate problem with the character is that every writer that comes on reinvents it. Gives them a whole new supporting
Yeah.
cast. Superman and Batman have a Flash, Aquaman. They have the same supporting cast with new members here and there, but Wonder Woman just gets wiped out each time. It's like new season of the show. Let's kill all the cast.
Right.
And, bring on the
And
new
I
people
also
and
think
see what
there's
works.
a lot of inconsistencies in how characters are treated. Steve Trevor, for me, I was so happy in the New 52 when he became the government liaison, because it seemed to me, if this is somebody who could hang with Wonder Woman, this is somebody of some fortitude and not just milquetoast or undefined character. That was one of the developments of the New 52, which I really liked.
Yeah, they made him like Suicide Squad material. Yeah, he was kind of badass.
I like that because
and hot.
I don't think Wonder Woman would be into somebody who didn't have some of those elements. Cassie, I felt she didn't really come to life until the Jeff Johns Teen Titans. And I think a lot of that was her interaction with other characters. Young Justice, that never really did it for me. But I really liked how she developed within Titans. You can disagree, that's fine. Hippolyta.
No, I'll give you that. I did like the Jeff Johns run.
Hippolyta.
Come on, the Jeff Johns run had the murderous
Wendy and
Wonder
Marvin.
Dog.
Oh no!
Oh, come on, no!
Don't answer the door.
Everything Jeff Johns touches has to become the blood in the eyes, murdering spree, flesh-eating zombies.
Everything? Everything, really?
That's just eventually.
Everything.
Oh, come on.
The way, what he did to... No, come on.
Look at JSA. Look what he did in JSA.
I think JSA is the one bright spot,
Yeah.
because even in the Flash, when he started very good, he ended up so immersed in the things that I don't like about his writing. But yes, JSA, he did a good job in it. But the JSA started with James Robinson, so he started very strong.
Yeah, but there's also issues where it's Robinson really jettisoned early, like issue 3. So,
Listen, Jeff saves Power Girl. So
Yeah.
I'm indebted to him.
Right. But in terms of Hippolyta, one interesting thing that happened during the Byrne run was they retconned Hippolyta as the 1940s Wonder Woman.
Oh.
You know what?
That was good.
I didn't mind some of that. I loved that. There were things about that bit that I loved. I loved that Wildcat was enough of a bruiser that he dared to call her Polly, and it stuck. You know,
And they did it.
And then you also had a couple of elements where you see Hippolyta having fun in that role. There were things.
She was the only one. Yes.
I liked that little bit. It was the timing of it was awkward, but there were things about that I liked.
I liked it too.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the sword and the shield, which continues to perforate everything. I thought that was just,
that's awful.
But I agree. She smiled and she had fun.
Yeah.
And I was okay. I like this.
Yeah. What did they kill her off in? Our Worlds at War for a little while? Yeah.
Yes.
And,
chicken armor.
Yeah.
Screaming chicken
Oh,
armor.
Screaming chicken armor.
She's always screaming in that chicken armor.
I love the
She's like the chicken in Family Guy, handing out coupons.
How about Etta Candy? People like her. I loved her take in Morrison's Earth One novel. I love that take on her.
I did too. I just think poor Etta she's another victim.
Yeah.
She goes from being, this great hero in her own right, and she's comfortable in her own skin, to now she has a weight problem, and she's going to marry Steve Trevor. Now she's African American, and she can't get a break.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing with the old 1940s Etta Candy is that, she was comic relief. She was a comedy sidekick because fat in the 40s equaled funny.
Yep.
So,
hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, oh, look, she's chunky. Ha ha.
But she still beat the crap out of a lot of people.
Oh, of course.
She was never
but mostly,
a victim.
Mostly because she could sit on people, and that would keep them.
Listen, do you know how many times that's got me out of a jam? Just sitting on somebody.
I'm just gonna sit here until the police come. Ha ha. Let me have candy. But she was still fun. She was fun. She was an interesting foil to Wonder Woman's usually pretty stoic. She would have her usual 1940s superhero quips, but mostly, she was just in charge. And here's Etta being kind of silly and bumbling and getting in trouble and getting captured by Nazis or gangsters or whatever. But
it's just another Friday.
Just another Friday, yeah. But I actually like the rebirth Etta Candy. She's African American. I would say she's not she's not a very prominent character, I would
Not
say,
yet.
but not yet. But I think they've been building very well through the two story arcs, in year one and Lies. I think are pretty interesting because she's a badass in her own right, but doesn't have a lot of opportunities to shine. She's openly a lesbian. You see her actually in a relationship with Cheetah, or at least with Minerva.
Barbara, yeah.
But
it's just
I also do like the rebirth Cheetah. I think there's been some
Yes.
pretty interesting
Yes.
backstories there.
She's
no, the rebirth.
Yeah, the rebirth. Yeah, no, not that other one. No.
I was thinking the New 52.
Yeah, that was.
No.
The New 52 one was just the same as you would throw out any kind of villain. It's like,
But it's with African American Edda, it's just like with Amanda Waller.
Mm-hmm.
You have a big heavy set person who's not heavy set anymore, and I don't know. It just kind of bothers me.
I don't know. She's pretty solid.
But she is heavy set.
She's pretty solid. She's beefy.
But also the New 52 was svelte, and to me that was Amanda Waller light. Yeah.
Right.
And then I think that is the danger. It shouldn't be. I mean, the fact that if we see an African American woman in charge in DC Comics, we immediately think Amanda Waller. And I think Edda probably needs to be a little bit more prominent so that she can really show herself to be a separate character. And obviously she's not writing herself, but I think we're going in that direction. But one of the problems that Wonder Woman's supporting cast tends to have, with the exception of Wonder Girl, whichever one you're going for, Cassie or Donna, they don't get out of Wonder Woman comics much. So you have Steve Trevor that sometimes shows up. He showed up in New 52 and Argus, but it was almost like throwing him a bone. He's he was furry Steve Trevor. And
yes.
The beard.
But I like that because he was in Justice League and stuff, and so they did try. They tried.
Yeah, they tried. But the thing with Wonder Woman's cast is that you don't. The villains rarely get out and are noticed as, okay, well, this is a Wonder Woman villain, but Batman's fighting him or her now, and these supporting cast characters are actually really prominent in several books, and I think it wasn't until recently, but even still, Edda.
Well, I think George Perez did a good job of that, though. I mean, Cersei became a pretty War of the Gods and stuff. A lot of those characters got around,
but not a lot. But that's the thing, like like we were saying a little bit earlier. Wonder Woman just doesn't have the same kind of rogues gallery as some of the other characters, as like a Flash or a Batman, where they're instantly recognizable. Yeah. Even the silly ones that Batman and Flash or Superman have are pretty recognizable generally and have shown up.
Well, that's because of media again. The TV shows really push those characters. In the Wonder Woman Linda Carter show, only Fausta and the Baron von Gunther were real villains. Everyone else was just villain of the week. Kind of tossed away.
Gangsters, Nazis, and
I think had they focused on comic-y villains instead of people with felt around there, like aliens with sparkly felt, or Darth Vader ripoffs, she would have had a better chance.
Mm-hmm.
But Cheetah was in the Super Friends, so everyone knows Cheetah. Everyone knows Cheetah because she's in Legion of Doom. But that's about it.
In fact, that's the thing. Like, everybody else seems to be represented pretty heavily in the Rogues Gallery in the Legion of Doom, except for Wonder Woman.
Oh, Giganta is in the Legion of Doom as well.
That's true.
Yeah, but they don't really interact.
Yeah. They're not like, hey, we got something in common, sister. We're both really against that Greek chick. It's not.
Well, even in the revised origin, she's more the Apache chief counterpart.
Yeah.
I think that probably either the lack of constant media blitz for Wonder Woman, or the fact that she's done very well and has a lot of visibility when she's in a team book like Justice League or Trinity, any of the Trinity books. That's where she really tends to shine, but she's shining because she's part of a group.
Well, I gotta say though, some of her team appearances are some of the most bizarre too.
Yeah, it's like we need a lady here. We need a woman So
Need a lady.
we need a lady. We got to put a lady in the sausage fest.
In the mid-'70s, Steve Englehart had a run on Justice League of America. And it's a
Yes, he
great
did.
run, but his take on Wonder Woman is a bit weird. She's a bit of a prima donna.
She is. She's always, I can't go on. I can't. I got to
She's
leave.
always losing her shit over something. And
Yeah.
that brief run, she really
She's gonna
is.
punch Superman out. They fought a lot.
And-
Yeah.
Well, that's such a change from like the Silver Age Justice League Wonder Woman, because she was always, they would throw her a bone of some sort in each task that they had to solve in every Justice League battle.
I mean, she started out as a secretary for the Justice Society.
About that, I just read the other day that the Wonder Woman as the GSA secretary was more of a William Moulton Marston demand, because he didn't want other writers handling her.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
She was a part of the GSA, but she would have a very small role so that no one could mess that
Right.
up.
It's not
Mess
until
the
Black
character up.
Canary comes along that she actually becomes a bit of a team member with her.
They had the best notes.
Yeah.
Those minutes were impeccable.
Yeah.
They were so and such penmanship.
Exactly. With the quill and everything.
And
They were
though it
great.
was a period where I got out of comics, I had a bit of exposure to Wonder Woman as the leader of Justice League. Pretty third-rate artist during that run, and
Oh,
That's
yeah.
it. Don't vibe with
Post death
stuff.
of Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you talking about John Byrne
no,
again?
I'm not talking about John
Artist,
Byrne.
or-
Silly.
Boom.
No, that's the Dan Vado
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah, it's
That's just been collected, as a matter of fact. I just saw it on Amazon the other
Yeah.
day. They made a trade paperback of
Woo.
it.
But we still really haven't touched on poor Donna Troy.
no.
Oh, Donna.
Last week.
Poor Donna Troy.
Well, Donna, I think is probably she's a metaphor for DC continuity, I think, and she's always been kind of treated as such. I mean, since since Crisis.
But she's arguably a much more interesting character than Diana is.
Exactly.
Especially in the Perez issues of Teen Titans. She's so great.
Yeah.
And,
It's-
like the wedding issue, come on now.
That's perfect.
I
That-
cry
that's a-
when I read it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Both of her origin stories during that run, first who was Donna Troy and then later who was Wonder Girl.
Right.
There's a lot of depth to that character, a lot of depth that was created out of necessity because of the changes in Diana at one point.
Exactly.
There's so many interesting things about her. When she was married to a much older man. You didn't see that a lot
Exactly.
in comics.
Yeah.
She got to have a kid.
Furry ginger. She was married to a
Furry ginger, yes, it was.
In the Titans, she was the strongest member almost through the entire run.
Exactly.
She was the powerhouse.
And those stories hold up so well,
Yeah.
even today. They're so well written, and she's such an important part of what makes those stories great.
Yeah.
Great superhero stories, great team book
Yeah.
stories.
But unlike her contemporaries like Nightwing and Arsenal, she's not allowed to progress. And whenever she tries to, they just you're in outer space now.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
okay. I'm a Dark Star. All right. I'm getting
Sure.
Green Lantern. Why
She
not?
filled that outfit nice, though.
I really want some shoulder pads. Can you get me some metal shoulder pads for my?
She's like a video game randomizer for a character. You just push random, and there she is.
Well, which is kind of why she ended up being, always there, sort of as a character. I can't remember if it was it wasn't 0 Hour. Was it Infinite Crisis, where she was kind of the let's see the multiverse through somebody's eyes to kind of
that was
Yeah,
Countdown.
she became the harbinger. Yeah, kind of monitor.
where it's like, oh look, this is what the multiverse looks like. This is what hypertime is like, and this is kind of how my work.
Hypertime. It's like hypercolor, but different.
If you get it wet, it just ruins it.
It just ruined.
It is a shame that they haven't. I don't want to say they haven't let her, but she hasn't had that mechanism to get outside of the team books too much.
She's the Jean Grey of DC.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody falls for her. Who has the time for her?
They all have a connection
Yeah.
to her. Yeah, she's stooped. Arsenal and Green Lantern. And
Exceptionally
and
liked her dating Kyle. I thought there were some really cute stories.
I did too. I thought it was good, but at the same time, she of course belongs with Robin. So, but that's a whole other thing.
No, that's Starfire. I think you're getting them mixed up.
But they're like Donnie and Marie. I love them. But you see, you care.
Actually, no, hold on. Did you just say Donnie and Marie? Did you say Donnie and Marie? I kind of want to go back.
Dick and Donna were the Donnie and Marie. Yeah.
Holy crap! They even have the same hair.
They
Holy
do.
crap.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But you got to
my
say,
mind
like,
is
Dick and
blown.
Donna would be perfect together, and that's why they'll never be together.
And they say
Yeah.
that in the wedding
Yeah.
issue, they have that discussion, and which is why she's such a good character.
Yeah.
And sometimes they forget her, sometimes I know who she
Yeah.
is. Who knows what day it is?
But they seem to be fixing
I
that
just
a
think it's a
little.
waste.
Slowly, they're fixing that.
But even
Well, they
now,
kind of took a break for a long time.
she's in the Titans now. She just stands in the background holding a sword
Very
and
true.
a shield.
You know what?
True. We're not sure what Donna Troy she is just yet because they haven't had a chance to actually talk to her.
Everybody will
She
have
totally
their
did
time
in
in the
the
sun,
in the
and right
annual
now
she did. Wonder Woman kind of says, I just am trying to protect you because you're that David Finch monstrosity.
Yes. Well, oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, she still speaks like the, I am sort of made of clay to your two-tier Wonder Woman.
in
kind
Titans
of, she
time,
still
but
has
as
that.
time has gone on, that's
But-
been diminished a bit.
I still can't believe that past the first editorial review, best concept, oh, can you imagine Meredith Finch coming to the editor and, oh, here's my idea for Donna Troy, and the editor reading it and, yes, that's cool, go ahead.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay, well, we're talking about a lot of arcs and a lot of comic stories, and we're
Yes.
throwing them, we're pulling elements from here and there, and maybe somebody listening to this may not exactly know what we're talking about. So I think it is time to make a recommendation for people listening to this show, whether they've read this stuff and might want to revisit it or completely do not have exposure to them. Let's start with James. James, if you had to recommend a Wonder Woman arc, which one would it be?
George Perez, I think it's kind of mandatory if you want a good Wonder Woman story. But the one I'm going to recommend is the Legend of Wonder Woman, which was a book written and drawn by Renee DeLise.
Great
That-
book. Great book.
Great book. It's a sort of Elseworld that show that's a retelling of her origin.
It's so cute. I love it.
It's so it's such a well crafted book, and it's a standalone story. It's completely independent of whatever else has been published from the of the character or of the DC universe in general. So a neophyte, someone who has never read Wonder Woman, can get this book and enjoy a really satisfying story with beautiful art and a really great take on the character. It's a single volume. It's pretty easy to find, and it's a story that I think manages to hit all the at least what I think are the core points of the character. Of what she represents, of her powers and her backstory and the island and the Amazons. I don't like much the way she interprets the let's say royal family of Themyscira, but
Right.
that's a really minor complaint that I have. I think The Legend of Wonder Woman is a really great book, especially if you have never read a Wonder Woman story before.
That was like reading Rainbow. I love
Yeah.
that. But
And also, since we mentioned Etta Candy, a wonderful take on Etta Candy in that book.
Yes.
As this Texas big bone woman of the 1940s who is very comfortable with who she is. I love that take on it.
Yes.
Yes. I agree.
Okay, let's go over to Brad. Brad, how about you? What would you recommend?
Much like James, I would definitely recommend the Perez, at least first 6-7 issues, because if you're coming off the movie, that's going to make the most sense in a way.
Yes.
And it's beautiful. It's just they pack so much
It's
into like 7
gorgeous.
issues.
It's
Yeah,
gorgeous.
every panel is amazing. But I'm going to go back to the 60s Wonder Woman that we were talking about. In trades now, you can find it very cheap on Amazon. But issues number like 178, that year span where she loses her powers, I just think it's if you're looking for something unique, I think that really works. The art is amazing, and it's just some funky stories that and the covers are breathtaking alone. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that because you can impress your friends and enemies if you read that. Because some people just know about it, but I think they should read it. They should really, because I think there's a lot of. I think it was such a daring move that I think people should give it a try.
Okay, Steve, how about you?
I think a really great, because again, my first time actually just reading, sitting down and, well, every month buying an issue of Wonder Woman started with the New 52. I'm going to recommend Azzarello's second arc, which is the one where she actually goes into Hades itself in order to rescue one of the main characters, one of her supporting cast from the New 52, the woman Zola, who of course is pregnant with Zeus's latest love child. In this one, we've already been introduced to the versions of Hades that Azzarello and Chang put out in the first story arc, and this is Hades as a little boy with a crown of candles, melted candles around his face. Just very cool design. But her going into hell, getting help from Hephaestus, getting help from a couple other characters. Of course, Strife, who I think is also very cool, a really interesting interpretation of this supporting character as a frenemy, manipulating things from behind, either very obviously or subtly. It's a very interesting journey that Wonder Woman goes through, and the art, of course, is beautiful because I love Cliff Chang.
It's gorgeous, yes.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and being able to, I think it's a good. If you haven't read the first Wonder Woman New 52 arc, it's still a pretty good arc. You don't have to have read it to really understand what's going on. And just the visuals alone and the interesting plot that they, what they put Wonder Woman through when she goes through Hades is pretty cool. So that's
Even
that's
the
pretty
filling
much.
artists, they got filling artists that meshed really well with Cliff Chang. So it's really consistent art-wise.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's just very cool.
Diana's like us, who doesn't have a weird family.
Yes.
Now, something, James, you once said to me that you felt the Azzarello Chang Wonder Woman was a great story, but not a great Wonder Woman story.
Yes.
Yeah. So and Brad, it sounds like you're in agreement there. So why don't you tell us about your feelings?
Well, as I said, joking the beginning of the cast, that's Conan as Wonder Woman, and I think that the problem with that run is that conceptually it's very, very wrong. He stripped the character of all of the feminine aspects. He completely destroyed the Amazons as characters.
Oh yeah.
He stripped her of the clay origin. He gave her a father, and it seems to me that is a Wonder Woman story. The whole run is a Wonder Woman story written by someone who doesn't know
the character. Yeah.
Yes, doesn't like the character.
I agree.
Much.
It'd be like giving Batman his parents back.
Yes.
Here we go.
It's like this. It works because Azzarello is a good writer, so it's a good story, and the art is magnificent, and there are some cool. The cool stuff there, the cool concepts, are not for Wonder Woman. So he has cool concepts for the gods. He has a cool frenemy for Wonder Woman in that Artemis like Amazon that. And he has a great take on Orion, I think.
Oh yeah.
But
and very
don't forget Hera's.
Oh, and my God,
none of that.
Okay, my Wonder Woman in a comic crush, High Father in the one. Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. But it's not a good Wonder Woman story. He doesn't like Wonder Woman, obviously.
It does seem like someone who does not like the character. I would read that character if it was somebody else. Like, it could have been a big Barda story or something.
Yes.
Just read
what
it
I
a little
always
bit.
said is that I can enjoy it because I imagine I'm reading an Elseworld of some other thing. It's not a Wonder Woman comic,
Well,
and she's so bloodthirsty.
Right.
I hate that. So the first thing she does in the first issue is to chop the fucking Centaur's arm off.
Yep.
No, that's completely wrong.
I can disagree with you, but I completely understand where you guys are coming from.
Yeah, I'm going to agree and disagree with James there and Brad, just because I don't think Azzarello hates Wonder Woman. I think he loves her, but he wants to provide a different take on this character and on what this character could be. And I
think he used the conceit of the New 52 to give her a different shading. Okay, I'm going to go with my pick. And like some people, they're going back to where they first read. And for me, I'm going to go with Wonder Woman: The 12 Labors.
Yes.
This was when Wonder Woman was invited to come back to the Justice League. She had not been a superhero for a sizable amount of time. And just like Hercules, she set out 12 labors to determine if she was worthy of it. Now, this comic series was written in the 70s, and it's abundantly clear it was written in the 70s. But there are little touches that make it special. It encompassed 11 issues of her comic book, a full year. And you had guest stars in different issues, usually one guest star. They kind of double up. Throughout, you see her relationship with the other Justice League members. She's closer to Superman and Aquaman than she is with the other characters. You can see that she has a comfort level with the two of them, where some of the others, like Flash or Green Arrow, it's pretty professional. Friendly but professional. But there's like the elements of actual, true friendship with the two that I mentioned. She doesn't know Dinah at all, Black Canary. And that's really because Dinah was effectively her replacement. Comes to get to know her and team up in the one story that's set on Paradise Island. And it's pretty cute.
Great cover.
Cover. She has her first interactions with some other members like Elongated Man and Phantom Stranger. Whether Phantom Stranger was a member, that's a whole other area of dispute.
Oh,
and Red Tornado. And I think in terms of like a conventional story with Wonder Woman as a superhero with some purpose behind it, I think it does retain a lot of charm, and that's something that I would recommend. I'm not sure if I would recommend it as my first Wonder Woman story. I think I'll go with you guys to do the Gods and Monsters, the first Perez arc. It's a really nice encapsulation of the character, but I think if you're ready for a second book, I would go with this. And
the 12 Labors is so good. I mean, if you were going to do a show, it could even be a miniseries, like on TV. It would be so good. It would play so well because you're right. The interaction with the characters is so good, and if you read the Justice League of the time, you would kind of be able to follow that. But I agree. I think that's a great. It's a great trade paperback too.
Well, I think we got a nice bit of Wonder Woman talk in, and I think we're all psyched for next week or tomorrow if you're listening. When the episode actually hits. So we're going to move on to the final segment of our show, which is something we call the Woofs of the Week segment, which is where we spotlight something, be it a comic book or a film or a charitable initiative. I just love saying charitable initiative, so I say it all the time. Anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, may be interested in exploring. So we're nothing if not gracious to our guests. So we'll start with Brad. What is your woof or woofs of the week?
Well, my woofs of the week are very selfish, very un-Wonder Woman-like, because they're about me. One is my new podcast called Wonder Words. You can find me on Facebook under the Wonder Words Podcast. And I also have another podcast called the Bear Trap Podcast. It's where I get me and two straight guys, and we start drinking and just talking about stuff. Usually the guys are very... well, let's not go that far. They're very bearish in nature. And you can find both those things on iTunes. And I'm going to add a third one because I just saw Arrow and Deathstroke was on it, and he doesn't get much woofier than Mano Bennett, so that's my end to that.
Just don't get on his bad side. You might end up...
I will get on his bad. I will get on any side I can get. I will climb that tree any way I can. I mean, he can stab me with a sword. It's fine.
In terms of Wonder Words, are you okay soliciting guests for that show? Because I really love certain episodes like Judgment from Outer Space Parts 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk.
Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
All right.
Lots of guest stars.
Yep.
You can all come on. We'll be a Wonder Words party.
All right. Let's move over to James. James, what is your woof or woofs of the week?
My woofs of the week are two books. The first one came out just now, which is the trade paperback for the Year One storyline in Greg Rucka's current run of Wonder Woman. The Year One is the retelling of Wonder Woman's origin, and the other arc, which is Lies and Now the Truth, is drawn by Lian Sharp, and Nicola Scott draws, as you said in the beginning, the flashback arc, Year One. And it's so beautiful. the way she draws Wonder Woman, nothing has to be written on the page for you to know that that's a young character, a naive character, very hopeful, very excited about, you know, the world that she's meeting, and it's such a well-crafted story, such beautiful world building that he does with the character. And I think it probably tops George Perez' first arc for me, because it's so
There's a lot of love.
There's a lot of love in there. The way he depicts the Amazons, you know, the way he shows how Diana has relationships with romantic relationships with other Amazons, and the way he integrates some subtle things like George Perez, when he took over Wonder Woman, he took the Amazons and sent them straight to the Bronze Age. You know, they had no advanced technology, because Wonder Woman, especially in the 40s, it was this weird sci-fi sex culture, you know, and they had healing rays, and the Hippolyta had that spying glass pool thing, and anyway, and Perez, he stripped Wonder Woman of the sci-fi elements. You know, they were a Greek village, an ancient Greek village. And if you read Rucka's Year One book, you see small hints of technology here and there that shows that he's incorporating all of these elements into the story that he's telling. And it's so well crafted. And Nicola Scott's art alone should be all the reason you need to buy this book, because it's beautiful, it's perfectly drawn. And she does a really nice looking Steve Trevor. He's not bearish, he's not, you know, my type of guy, but he's really beautiful, a beautiful man. You know, she obviously, you know, something I noticed that very few artists do. She draws the eyelashes in the male characters, and it kind of shows a completely different depiction or approach to drawing male characters. You know, it's definitely not a man drawing those characters, and I think that's really beautiful, the way this book came out. You know, so my first wolf of the week is the trade paperback for Year One. And the other book is this is not a new release. It came out in 2016, but I just got it this week and it's amazing. It's IDW's Jack Kirby Pencils and Inks Artisan Edition, which they collected the first issues of Olmec, Kamandi, and the Demon, just the pencils and inked pages, and it's gorgeous. If you like Jack Kirby, you probably already have this, and if you don't like Jack Kirby, you probably start liking him now, because it's amazing work. You flip through those pages and you kind of understand. You kind of understand why Kirby is so important, why his work is so important to comics. You know, it's beautiful, really amazing stuff. If you're an artist, if you're like drawing comics, if you plan on drawing comics, you should definitely get this book, because it's amazing. And IDW has been doing such a great work with their artist editions, you know, and the reproduction of penciled pages and inked pages, and it really is a masterful work, you know, being represented here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
There are some that I just cannot wait if they ever happen. One is any version of Matt Wagner's Mage. And
Yes.
if there
yes,
ever was a Kevin
Yes, please.
McGuire Justice League International.
oh please,
Oh.
yes,
Those are the
yes,
two that I don't.
yes.
Those are the two where I would like. You know, I know they're pricey, but I have to get them. So
Oh my God,
Yeah.
the Walt Simonson one, the Thor, the Walt Simonson Thor, it's
yeah, I
so beautiful.
wish I pulled the trigger on the Mazzucchelli Born Again. I
Oh my
really
God,
wish
it's
Oh.
amazing.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did.
The
Oh.
Rocketeer,
wish I-
really, the Rocketeer is the one reason you need to start buying these things, because it will blow your mind how beautiful those pages are. And how sad it is that Baby Stevens died so young, you know?
All right, let's move on to Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, I got two real quick. One, of course, is I listen to way too many podcasts, but I've got to force everybody else to also listen to additional podcasts. In addition to Brad's, we also have a. It's kind of an odd one because I never read these books when I was that age, but it's a podcast called Teen Creeps. By two comedians and writers, Kelly Nugent and Lindsay Katai. And basically what they do is they talk about the YA oeuvre of Christopher Pike. So if you remember all those, books that showed up at Walden Books in what was known as probably young adult fiction before YA became a real thing, these were like the odd sort of semi-horror, semi-thriller,
Right.
teen books. And they do a great job really kind of going through each book, summarizing the plot and talking about their characters, and then really going off the rails and making them very, very personal. So you really do get to hear about the books, hear about what they meant to the hosts, but then of course hear about stuff that's completely not related to the books, and that makes it a little bit more fun. And eventually, in the later episodes, they have guests on, and they start talking about other YA books like the Sweet Valley High, the Babysitter's Club, some Flowers in the Attic, things like that. So you do get sort of an interesting range of YA novels through their eyes, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to follow along with them. The second thing that I have is the new true crime series, and hopefully you weren't talking about this, Bill, but The Keepers, just released on Netflix a few weeks ago. This series very similar, but also extremely different from the Making a Murderer series that Netflix had last year. This one was about the unsolved mystery murder of Sister Kathy Sesnick, who taught English at a high school in Baltimore in the 60s. Basically, two former students of hers who are now in their 50s and early 60s have been keeping the search alive for her killer and for finding out the truth. And let's just say I don't want to spoil anything. After the first episode, what you think this murder could be about goes completely off the rails through a lot of cover-ups and crazy conspiracies involving the Catholic Church in Baltimore, the police department, these schools that that the teachers that the sister had taught at. Just a lot of things that are brought into this that are very surprising and pretty awful. So be warned that it is pretty intense. But for 7 episodes, and I'm only partially through it, it is just one amazing episode after another that would blow any kind of scripted television like a Law and Order SVU out of the water with something that actually did happen. Very, very true crime, very impactful. So that's The Keepers, available on Netflix, I think in the US and Canada. I'm not sure if it's elsewhere yet.
For my woofs of the week, and I'm going to do multiples too, just like everybody else did. Why the hell not? The first woof I want to send out goes to the 5 Points Festival, which was a 2-day comic book and street art and beer and designer toys convention. I don't know exactly how to categorize it, but it was actually co-presented by Clutter Magazine and Midtown Comics. This was a nice festival. If anybody had gone to New York to the special edition festival, no big media guests, Artist Alley dominates, vendors, but it's not a garage sale. It was just a really nice atmosphere held on Pier 36 on the Lower East Side. Really nice collision of counterculture and conventional comics, and it was their initial year. They're going to be back in 2018. It's just great to have an event where you can get vinyl pops and vegan Korean tacos. That's all I'll say.
Ooh.
It was pretty cool. I'd also like to thank the press department for providing me with a complimentary press pass. It was very much appreciated. And for my second woof, anybody who's listened to this podcast knows of my love for Alan Moore's run on Supreme, which was the Rob Liefeld Superman analog. There was a Wonder Woman analog, which didn't really get the same treatment. Alan Moore did her. Alan Moore did her. Alan Moore did a take on her, which has never been collected. So if you can find them from Avatar Press, you can still find single issues of Alan Moore's Glory. But the book that I'm going to throw out to you was the One Glory collection prior to the recent revamp from Image. And this goes back to, yeah, it's amazing. But this one is amazing in its own right. So I'm going to throw you back to the 1995 collected edition, Glory. Who Wrote the Book of Love, written by Mary Jo Duffy with art by Mike Deodato Jr., who has his own career.
Oh boy.
History with Wonder Woman. There is a lot of glory ass in this book. It is definitely of its time. But,
yes, it is.
Yeah, but at the same token, there is a certain charm to the advent of bad girl comics or good girl comics. I think it's something that people should, whether they gravitate toward or not, just see what an alternative take on Wonder Woman might look like. So, yeah, it's hard to find, but it is one of the few collected editions of Glory prior to the recent revival. And again, Who Wrote the Book of Love, if you can find it. And if not, God, you can probably find the single issues for 50 cents a piece at some convention. So, there you go. So, Brad, James, thank you so much for joining us on this special Wonder Woman episode.
Thank you.
Super
Very happy.
And
I really want to do
awesome.
this again. Let's, I hope there's a movie every year where we can do this again. Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do like a year in Wonder Woman next year.
Oh,
Does that sound good?
That would be cool.
I'm in.
We'll go from the film right until around the beginning of June. A Diana year. Let's do that.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you all for listening. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to write to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. You can subscribe to us through iTunes. You can subscribe to us through Stitcher Radio. Until next time, I'm Billy Z.
I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a wolf and an explosion, and we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Wolf.
She's so malicious and so delicious, superstitious, super suspicious. Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman. You just rewind, we'll just be fine. We'll just be fine, you just be mine. You just rewind, you just be fine. You just be mine, you just be mine. You show me everything. You feel me everywhere. You pretend that you care. Do you care? I think so broke your time. I knew you weren't mine. I shot right through the sky. Nothing I try and try. Captured by what I lose. Lost where I forced up through. Being what I'll never be. Hardly remembering me. Tuck your head behind your ears. Your tears and your silly fears. I'll be your teddy bear. You choose the clothes I wear. For you I suffer much pain. Sharp glass, migraine. For you I lose my focus. For you I swim focus. You show me everything. You feel me everywhere. You pretend that you care. Do you Every time I am here, I feel forever share. Closing out on the beginning of time as a dream. Following myself right down, always on center of time. Arranging life so tight, feeling now. You show me everything. You feel me everywhere. You pretend that you care. Do you care? Yeah, I'm a lame. She don't know my name. Would she love me if I had more fame? sex.